Hi, welcome to the Forecasting for Success podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Brie. I'm a doctor of psychology, financial educator, astrologer, and founder of Forecasting for Success, a community of people improving their financial literacy to achieve financial independence. I blend my expertise as a former professor and financial intelligence analyst with the tool of astrology to help break down why you are struggling with specific money habits and the best way to form more intentional responses and choices when it comes to money, especially to help you feel more secure in your financial decisions and improve your money skills for building long-term wealth. Welcome back to the Forecasting for Success podcast. I'm so happy that you're here. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Your support really helps me and the show continue to do well. You can also share this show with a friend, which I'd really appreciate, as well as send me your comments and questions that I can help answer in future episodes. You can reach me at forecastingforsuccess.com/podcast. The full transcripts of every episode are also posted to my website, and you can find the link in the show notes of each episode, along with other helpful resources, which include signing up for my free monthly investing masterclass, where I teach the basics of why and how to invest in the stock market, how to invest even if you're paying off debt, and it includes a live question and answer session and free money guide at the end. So click on the link in the show notes to sign up, and I'll see you in the next class. My guest today is Jenny, who has questions about how to sustain her passion for success with better clarity and focus long term. Jenny is a brilliant and highly capable woman, and she's reached a point in her life where she'd prefer to keep her attention focused on something that feels right for her to sustain, rather than knowing she'll need to switch it up again to something new that pulls on her attention. Okay, let's get started. Hi, Jenny. Welcome to the show and thank you for being here. What would you like a reading about today?
Hi, Brie. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm very excited to be here. So, in the realm of money, success, career, prosperity, and all of that, I feel like I've had a very different path than a lot of people because I'm a very non-traditional person. I am a creative and I am a multi-potentialite. I've got ADHD and I have never stuck with one thing in my life. I get very excited and so I switch directions often, and I do find it hard to focus and like get to the point of mastery on whatever, I'm pursuing at the moment to the point where I feel like I can be like a long-term success. And so I'm on my fourth career. I have 4 degrees. I get very passionate about things, which is a very ADHD trait. And when I get passionate about something, I want to pursue it. And I want to have a career of purpose and passion, but I'm finding it hard to sustain myself in the directions that I've been trying to go down. And I feel like I never quite get there. Like I'm too scattered, I'm too all over the place. And so success for me feels like something that I will always be working toward, but like not quite getting to because my career is fragmented, really. So I'd like some insight on that and how to really focus myself as I move forward in my career to try and get to that level where I feel masterful and like I can really sustain long-term success in what I'm trying to do.
That is a really powerful and important question, especially for this period of time in your life. So I'm really happy that you're here so that we can get into the weeds of your question and hopefully provide you some clarity.
That would be awesome.
Your chart has some really rare aspects, and so I was very excited whenever I pulled up your chart, and I'm very excited to get all into the weeds. So I'm just gonna dive right in.
Okay, well, I love to hear that. I hear I'm a very unique person from a lot of people.
Yes, that is true. And it's absolutely shown in your chart, which is some of what we'll be discussing today. So I'm excited to talk about this with you.
Okay, awesome.
So the first thing that I noticed whenever I pulled up your chart is that you have a bull chart, which means that all of your planets are found within the same 180 degrees of your chart. So
Okay.
often people with this type of chart are very independent and they're very self-sufficient with varying degrees of really owning their independence or feeling like they're faking it. So it does depend on the type of person that they are and their respective placements, where they fall within that spectrum.
Okay.
What I'm seeing with your chart is that it reflects you really embracing your self-sufficiency and owning how very capable and intelligent you are as a person. So
Mhm.
I'm seeing you as falling on the side of the spectrum where you're very independent and very self-sufficient and self-fulfilled. which can be challenging when you feel like you're quite capable, which speaks to some of that bouncing from one thing to the other that you mentioned in your question.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know I'm very smart, I'm very capable. I can learn things, and that's why one of the reasons why I get excited about something, I'm like, "Oh, I can learn how to do that. I'll just do it." So,
Exactly.
I know that I'm capable of doing anything that I want to do. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right, which that's where the irony kicks in of it's so challenging to pick something because
Yeah.
everything is possible.
Yep.
What's really interesting is that there's this inkling of something missing, though, and it's an aspect of having a bowl chart. And again, that missing piece, it is different for each person. One of the first things that you can do with a bowl chart is to first look at the planet that crosses the ascendant. And for you, that's the planet of Pluto. And your Pluto is in the sign of Libra in the 12th house at 21 degrees and 57 minutes. I
Okay.
actually forgot to share your birth information.
It's
I got
okay.
so excited. I just dove
Why don't
right
you jump
in.
right into it?
For anyone that would like to follow along, we are sharing your birth information.
Mhm.
You were born on August 9th in 1981 at 12:30 p.m. in Albany, New York.
Correct.
All right.
I'm a Leo.
Let's see. Oh, I had missed something I was going to say before.
Sure.
How do I want to say that? It sounds to me like one of the missing pieces for you is what to choose, like which direction to pick and how to move forward. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
definitely what we're going to be getting into here with your chart.
Yes.
So, what this means is that you often bring an energy of transformation and evolution to how you might instinctually first interact with the world or accomplish or resolve things. And it includes this layer of Pluto. So, that's why it's important to look to that planet first whenever exploring your bowl chart.
Hmm.
Because what this means is you would naturally learn over time that hitting this Pluto button, if you will, of transformation or engaging in power struggles, it's not an easy button. It shouldn't actually be the first button that you reach for, since something like that doesn't apply to all situations.
Hmm.
So you're likely more aware of this now at this stage of adulthood, but it was probably confusing or challenging in the past when you wanted to hit that button and say, I can transform something. I have the power to engage with or to act on something, and the
Hmm.
experience might have called for that. The situation may not have called for that. And so you're more likely to realize in a quicker way now, like, oh, maybe that's not the right button to hit, like straight out of the gate.
Yeah, I do. I have tended to be very quick to uproot my entire life in the past and just make complete 180s and change my entire life and career very quickly.
It's probably very exciting in the moment.
Yeah, sure. It sure is.
But as soon as the dust has settled, I'm sure there have been moments where you're like, oh, maybe I could have taken a breath.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sort of in a different phase of life now. So I have a child, I'm a single mother, I'm a homeowner. It's not as easy for me to just say, oh, I think I'm going to just quit my job and leave my career and do something completely different overnight. I need to provide stability. So it
Absolutely.
makes a big
100%.
difference.
Yeah. And it also brings another layer of importance to your question of what can you do to seriously sustain yourself from a resource perspective long term.
Yeah.
Yeah. The second thing that we look to with a bowl chart are the two planets that make up the edge of the bowl. And in your chart, this is Neptune and Mars. And the reason why we look here next is because this can provide clues as to what is missing, per se, that missing element that I mentioned earlier, and
Hmm.
how you can better engage in your personal evolution in this lifetime. So
Love that.
your
Okay.
your original question, it really speaks to your chart, meaning that yes, it's easy for you to transform yourself and to have agency over many different skill sets and talents, but something is still missing. You do want to move forward in life in a more purposeful and sustainable way.
Yeah.
What's really incredible about your Mars placement, which is in Cancer in the ninth house at 14 degrees and 52 minutes, is how this represents having a really high drive and motivation for higher education, which you've demonstrated through your multiple degrees.
Hmm.
I actually wanted to ask you if you wouldn't mind sharing what your degrees are or where your area of expertise is.
Yeah, sure. So this will be fun. So I got out of high school and I went to college and I got a bachelor's degree in theater because I was a community theater girl. I love theater. I'm still performing to this day. And I spent several years in New York City after college as an actor. After that, I went back to school after I got married and got a post-baccalaureate degree in ancient history and archaeology, which is a big switch because I'm also a huge history lover and I'm extremely curious about human culture and behavior and the past and how we've developed into the species that we are today. I followed that up with a master's degree in anthropology and I became a professional archaeologist for a couple of years. Moved from there into teaching. I taught anthropology for a while. And then I transitioned into the instructional design world because I really enjoyed creating online educational content when I taught anthropology. And that seemed like a much more stable career as I was becoming a mother. And I got another post-baccalaureate degree in instructional design at that point. And so that is the field that I'm currently working in. I work in at a university doing collegiate instructional design and e-learning design.
I am both impressed and jealous.
Thank you. Yes, some people say that makes absolutely no sense, and I say you're right, but that's where we are.
That's so funny because just because my worldview is different, just reading your chart, I'm like, that all tracks. That all makes perfect sense. And
Yeah,
ironically, it's some of the recommendations. You've already done them of what we're going to get to here in a little bit.
that's so funny.
That's incredible. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed all that. I hope that you've enjoyed your time of higher education and where
Yeah.
it's brought you in life.
I've loved my life. I've loved every aspect that I've explored in my professional career and in my personal life. I also have a million hobbies and side hustles. I have a freelance career. I do voiceover and I make spokesperson educational video content for people. And then I also have my personal life where I have everydayprojector.com where I talk about self-discovery and different strategies that people can use to help transform their lives to find out what their pathway toward more fulfillment and success and happiness is. That's my real passion and what I'm feeling called toward as a, lifelong career at the moment.
That's so exciting. And we're definitely going to share in the show notes where people can find you so that you can continue to help people because that's incredible.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So you do have a lot of energy for wanting to expand your horizons, whether it's through education or travel. And many people with this placement of Mars in the ninth house, it can feel like having a degree or a certification is needed first before you can take action. So
That's very, very true.
yeah. So
Obviously.
yeah, obviously. So it can be a tricky placement sometimes in order to learn how to calm your ego because Mars represents our egos
Mm.
and feel confident enough to move forward without a piece of paper and to back you up or back us up on what we want to move forward on with certain actions or decisions. So
Yeah.
sometimes that is a learning process of just learning to be confident in yourself and stand on what you currently know and what your current capabilities are
Mhm.
without feeling like every time you need to move forward on something, it also requires a piece of paper.
Yeah, that's a real struggle I have right now with my everyday projector work because I also want to work with integrity. And to me, working without a coaching certification or something like that feels like, am I an imposter? Am I qualified to do this? Is anyone going to trust me that I know what I'm talking about? Even though my knowledge comes from my experience and my life and my lessons and the insights that I've learned through my experience, not necessarily something that I've gained from schooling. But I do struggle a lot with that in that current trajectory.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're right. There's obviously a time and a place to have the proper licenses or certifications. It's just important not to, let's see, how do I want to say this? It's important to not let them stand in the way of taking action. So
Hmm.
sometimes it's okay to do things concurrently to get started on something. And if you still feel very strongly about it, to go ahead and get the paper as well, as
Hmm.
long as it's not an excuse to hold yourself back unnecessarily.
Yeah, yeah, that's my calling card, I think, right now is holding myself back because of that insecurity.
I see. Let's see if we can try to break through some of that as we go through your reading to help
Okay.
you explore more deeply why that's happening and new actions or different actions that you can take in order to break through that stagnation.
That would be great.
So sometimes the only way to gain knowledge or skill is by doing, and it's also from learning from our mistakes along the way. So again, that's another way to look at it sometimes in order to get the confidence you need to take action and to take that next small step.
Hmm.
So the funny thing is that Mars is in its fall in Cancer, which means that this sign is uncomfortable for Mars because Mars is about action rather than emotion.
Hmm.
So what this placement can help explain though is that one of your motivations is likely security, of which finances does play a heavy part in our present day society since it is based on capitalism, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So if I read between the lines when it comes to your question, I do sense that you feel like you currently have a lack of security to some degree. And I was going to ask, does that feel accurate for you? Is that maybe a piece of your question?
Yeah, absolutely. It feels very vulnerable being in this position, being a single mother, having to, only rely on myself. And there's definitely insecurity there when it comes to fear that I won't have the ability to maintain the same type of income that I want to maintain my standard of living.
Right, absolutely. It is a very different perspective when it's not just yourself anymore. So I agree that that can be a more fear-based perspective when you're
Yes.
having to worry about someone that truly depends on you
Yeah.
and in this case your income.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we go back to Mars being at the edge of your bull chart, it's not really a question of your intellect or your motivations or your skill sets. It's actually about long-term strategic planning with both purposeful and actionable steps to get from where you are present day to how you envision a more secure and sustainable future. And I think that's the piece that is probably just based on your natal chart placements. I believe that that's where some of the struggle or the hardship is coming from,
Hmm.
is things remain a bit nebulous and it's very difficult for you to ground into actionable steps,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
that's part of what you're feeling.
Definitely.
Okay. So Pluto and Mars are two important parts of this puzzle as to why you feel pulled in different directions and are currently lacking a more long-term or strategic plan. And Pluto is part of why you have this shiny object syndrome
Yeah.
and think, oh, I can transform and shift gears really quickly. I can contribute to what's going on over there. And Mars is also a part of why you might more easily than others develop a sudden emotional attachment or emotional response to something that you believe needs change, or you feel very strongly about wanting to change or improve
Mm.
and being motivated to provide what's missing for someone else
Mm.
because you recognize you're capable. And that's an easier problem for you to solve, vice trying to understand and look more inward about your own goals and motivations and how to ground yourself and get you to where you want to go. So I can see how the energy is more focused outward. Outward is easy,
Hmm.
and inward and concrete steps forward would be more challenging just based on the placements that I'm seeing.
Oh, that's so true. Really good point.
So, what I'm going to do now is go over to the other edge of your bull chart and discuss Neptune's role in this before we get to Venus and Venus's role in this holistic situation.
Okay.
So, Neptune is in the sign of Sagittarius and it's in your second house at
Mhm.
22 degrees and 15 minutes. And Sagittarius is a sign that naturally rules the ninth house, which represents things that we mentioned earlier, like higher education and travel. Whereas the second house, it represents our personal values. So it makes even more sense why you really strongly value your degrees and had the motivation to pursue multiple university degrees, because that's
Mhm.
where you're comfortable. That's really where you excel.
Yeah, definitely.
The thing about the planet Neptune, though, is that it represents things dissolving, which is not the best when it comes to tangible resources.
Hmm.
We need to be able to hold on to things like money. So it really does require a deeper level of understanding and purposefulness to not have resources slipping through your fingers.
Mm.
It's a very challenging placement to have Neptune in your second house, and it requires being more cognizant of your resources, what you value as well, what your personal values are, and what your boundaries around these values are, and how to hold and maintain these in a very grounded and realistic way. Because Neptune has us with our heads in the clouds, things are more idealistic, it's a little less realistic. So
Mm-hmm.
it's this very slippery gray area, if you will.
Yeah, I'm a very head in the clouds person. I don't have a lot of ground or earth energy. So I feel like that is definitely something missing for me is that groundedness.
Yeah, exactly. Only one planet is in an Earth sign, which it's like you're reading my mind. We will actually get into that in just a second.
Okay.
So there also could be this layer of valuing helping others and being very charitable, but forgetting or maybe not realizing how to maintain your own personal foundations and resources in order to keep yourself stocked up and what you really need. So it's like you would get a bit distracted helping others, stock up on like food and wood for the winter and being very proud for helping others. And then once that first snow starts to fall, you're like, oh no, I've made a mistake.
Yeah. I've done something wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that tracks for sure.
It's like you will realize, but unfortunately the realization just comes a little bit too late. Your
Hmm.
life would be more even keel, if you will,
Hmm.
if this recognition was able to kick in just a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I've always said like I'm a very big thinker. My perspective is always like way out in terms of like what am I going to do for the world and what's my legacy and what like what's my purpose and trying to figure out all the ways that I can help people and realize my potential and my purpose and do big great things. But I'm very bad at details and what's right in front of me. So I will forget to buy the firewood. I won't have milk in the fridge when my son comes to, my house. That stuff can really get lost on me because my head is like 1,000 miles away thinking about 80 different things that are all very big picture.
Right, exactly. And I can't imagine the frustration sometimes because you mean well and you're an extremely intelligent and capable person. So having that disconnect, I can't imagine how challenging that is
Yeah.
when the realization kicks in and you're like, why? Like I know better.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
That ends up costing me money sometimes too. Like I'll neglect to pay attention to certain things and then it'll all of a sudden be in your face like, "Oh, you didn't do this." And now you need to make up for it by like having that work done or, paying the fee because you forgot to register on time or whatever. So that can be a drain financially as well.
Yes, 100%. That's such an important point that you brought up.
Mm.
And if it helps, I hear that often from clients who do share that they have ADHD or
Yeah.
similar elements like that, to where they're like, for whatever reason, it doesn't stick in my mind. I'm not cognizant of the time limits or
Yep.
the deadlines. And you're right, you end up paying fees or you have to pay urgent rush fees, etc.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
it's very really frustrating when you're trying to stick to a budget and deadlines, and then things like this happen.
Yeah, it's a struggle.
Mhm. So, yeah, unfortunately, there could also be a disconnect when it comes to tangible resources and money, where it makes sense in theory, but it never quite feels literal or realistic. So, rather, it would just be ideal to have money, but nothing really comes after that. And that's probably part of the frustration. So, I just wanted to check in if that tracks, if that's what you've experienced before.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bank accounts are kind of like an ethereal thing in my mind, like they exist. Sometimes there's more in them than others, but it's not a very tangible thing to me. I would rather live in a world where money just didn't exist. It feels very out of pocket, out of sight, out of mind. Like, yeah, and it does feel like it can come and go, and it doesn't like always register, or it can slip through my fingers, and I'm like, oh well, my money's gone again.
Oh my goodness. That's speaking directly to your chart.
Yeah.
Because you're right, the house is ruled by a fire sign. So yes, money and resources can be burnt through very quickly. Neptune's
Hmm.
in there and things are just slipping right through your fingers. So you're
Yeah.
definitely experiencing the chart as it is.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to put into place a very stereotypical money or financial advice because it doesn't really work. It doesn't really work with people who think about and experience the world differently. It's not easy, and it's also not respectful when people are just very flippant and they say, oh, just make a budget, or oh, just use this app. It
Yeah.
doesn't really work like that. That's not realistic advice, unfortunately, for every person in their situation.
Yeah. Making a budget, I do it. Doesn't mean much.
It just kind of hangs out on the computer.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, so it's really speaking to just how can we pull down the theory or pull down this element of being in the clouds into really getting into something in the day-to-day mundane world to make things happen and to make things
Mhm.
happen consistently over time.
Yeah.
What's also important to highlight here is that, again, you only have one planet and an Earth sign, and that does play a part too in why it's so hard to ground yourself and to sustain focus on these long-term plans.
Hmm.
And Venus, ironically, is the only Earth sign planet in your chart.
The dreamiest of signs, right?
So it's in Virgo and it's in the 11th house at 19 degrees and 23 minutes.
Mm.
And I feel like you chose to play life on a more difficult setting because Venus is also in its fall sign in Virgo.
That feels right.
So again, you've got this harder setting compared to a lot of people when it comes to money and other tangible resources, as well as clearly defining your personal values and maintaining and holding boundaries around those values that you choose to set.
Hmm.
Venus in Virgo, it can play into valuing being of service to others and sometimes forgetting to take a breath and check in consistently with the big picture, with
Hmm.
your long-term goals or what really matters to you in the end. So
Hmm.
you might get lost in that, in the details of the day-to-day for other people, again, being in service to others and how you can help in other situations and forget, oh, wait a second, this might not be the most valuable use of my time or my resources. It might be pulling you too far off your own path.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I feel like every single day, it's just like from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, focused on exactly, my list 80 miles long of what can I do today? How can I get the most out of this hour to keep creating and, making content and writing and planning, this gig or that job or whatever. And it can be very draining and really take me out of my long-term thinking about myself and my goals and just
Yeah.
what's right now, what can I do right now in order to, make more money or make this effort more successful or, make this that's going to help me in this area of my life. Every day feels like it's like a race and the big picture can often get lost.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very difficult to find something to where you can check in with yourself, to where you have a useful and actionable reminder to get you to have that 5 minutes to where you can take a breath
Hmm.
and know that everything's going to be okay.
Hmm.
Everything's going to get taken care of, but at least be able to check in with yourself and say, okay, can I just think about this for just 5 minutes, 5 seconds, and verify that it's not taking me away from where I need to be long term, that I can still accomplish multiple things on this path without accidentally
Hmm.
veering off. And that is very challenging to find something that works.
Yeah, I need that. The ADHD brain is very susceptible to distraction. So I can get pulled in many different areas. No matter what my intentions were for the day, I could end up doing five other things that are not related.
Yeah. I hear about that from so many clients that they have something really important and they need to go physically get it in their house. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, they get, even just within their own homes, they just get lost along the way.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very much so.
Oh, goodness. So, one highlight of this placement is to use your network to help yourself achieve goals. So, this Venus placement in this house, it speaks to being open to reaching out to friends and to social groups as needed in order to bounce your ideas off of others, or even to ask for help sometimes in order to reach that next step, whatever it may be or wherever you're going. It's a
Hmm.
really positive placement in order to seek help from your community.
Okay, that's really great to know. I'm hyper independent, so asking for help or bringing other people into my can be difficult.
Yeah, understandably. And I think that's a hidden aspect, honestly, of this placement. And so I felt like it was important to highlight because it's most likely not even a second or third instinct, but it is kind of like a hidden gem, if you will, of your chart,
Mhm.
that this is a very positive resource for you that you're encouraged to tap into.
Okay, that's yeah, very good to know and remember.
What's funny about the placement of your Venus is that it is challenging for it to check in, if you will, with your second house because that the second house is one of the houses that Venus naturally rules. And to get that house to fulfill its role of resources and values, because your second house is ruled by a fire sign and contains this planet Neptune, plus, your moon is also hanging out there in Sagittarius.
Hmm.
So, Venus in Virgo is uncomfortable in and of itself, a bit fussy, if you will. And she's trying to communicate with a house where Neptune's head isn't really in the game. The moon is pretty restless and just wants to have a good time. It's
Hmm.
not really a disciplined squirrel, if you will,
Okay.
that's known for slowly and methodically storing away nuts for the winter.
Hmm.
So otherwise, the house just wants to burn through resources quickly because it's excited. It wants to see what else is out there in the big wide world.
Hmm.
So Venus is attempting to fulfill its role of resources and sustainment, but what it has to work with is not cooperating.
Ah, okay. Interesting. That feels right too.
So it's as we get deeper into your chart, it just makes more and more sense why you have this frustration, why this question is
Hmm.
continuing for you.
Yeah.
So the last thing that I'll mention about your bowl chart before we move on to the next step is that it is important to pay attention to any planets that end up creating a handle to your natal chart. So what this means is that in present day, a transiting planet would be opposite all of your natal planets.
Okay.
And what I did see right now is that Venus is currently in Aries and it is forming that handle to your chart. So what's incredible about us doing this reading right now is that this is the perfect time to focus on this energy and to, no kidding, getting your ducks in a row when it comes
Hmm.
to money and resources and coming up with a way that genuinely works for you,
Hmm.
whether that's making voice notes, voice reminders, writing it down somehow, somewhere, whether it's notes on your phone, if it's physically in a journal book, but genuinely taking time to think through actionable steps that you both need to take and want to take when it comes to identifying your personal values and what you really want to get out of money, what you want money to do for you long term
Hmm.
before this energy moves on. So I was going to recommend trying to think through what would work for you, what would really help you with this step between now and June. And just to try
Okay.
to finalize that plan in real
Hmm.
detail, really get into great detail as much as you can about genuine steps that you can take that are measurable. Make sure that whatever you're coming up with is something that you can measure and genuinely check in with yourself about. That way, it's more realistic for you to take action on whatever details you come up with.
Okay, that's fantastic advice. So yes, thank you. I will do that.
Absolutely.
Good to know.
So, the next thing that I wanted to discuss is that you have a final dispositor, and that is what I'm so excited about.
Oh, wow. I don't know what this is.
So, your sun in Leo is the final dispositor of your natal chart.
Okay.
So, a final dispositor means that your natal chart placements, they all lead back to a single planet in rulership. And
Whoa.
this is what is so rare and powerful. This is not a placement that is very common when it comes to astrology.
Hmm.
So, in your case, no matter which planet you look at, we will always end with your sun. So, for example, if we start with Pluto, your Pluto is in Libra, and Libra is ruled by Venus. So then we look to Venus, and your Venus is in Virgo, and Virgo is ruled by Mercury. And when we look to your Mercury, it's in Leo, which is ruled by the sun, and your sun is in Leo. It's in its sign of
Hmm.
rulership. So again, no matter which planet we start with, we will always end up with your sun. And that's why it's called a final dispositor.
That is so cool. Wow. Okay.
So, in plain language, what this means is that your sun has dominant energy and it acts as the ultimate authority within your chart. So,
Mm-hmm.
your sun has influence over all the other aspects of who you are and how you express the other elements of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what is symbolized in the other planets. So, your sun and who you are, your identity, it touches upon everything else, whether it's your worldview or how you define your values, to how you communicate, all of it. And this is why it's so rare to have one planet that no matter what ends up having the final say, if you will,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
over like your choices and your actions.
Yeah.
So, what's beneficial is that this is like a secret weapon where you can harmonize and better direct your energy and purpose because there's one driver. If you think of your chart like a car, you have one planet that's trying to drive the car versus other people who have planets constantly fighting over who gets to drive, who gets to be the
Mm-hmm.
driver.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I don't know if you know tons about human design, but in human design, I have a single definition, which is very in alignment with this. Some people have multiple definitions and they can be kind of at war with different parts of themselves that are trying to be in charge. But I don't. I just have the one. So I have a very succinct, like, I have one thing that's in charge of how I operate.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Someone just recently introduced me to what that is. I hadn't heard of it before, so that's
Mhm.
fascinating that it seems to be the same also in that
Yeah.
system.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm a projector in human design. I'm a self-projected projector, which is someone who is really meant to be in the guidance or leadership area of life and to use their voice and their actual words in order to do that. And so being a Leo in my sun, 10th house, feels to me like everything I've ever attempted to do, I've had a real ability to do it succinctly, vocally, to be out in front of things, to be presentative, and to be able to present myself well in order to communicate all of those things that I'm learning and teaching and trying to do to people, which feels very much in alignment with my human design strategy as well.
That's so fascinating. Yeah, it sounds like they really do align. That's incredible.
Astrology is part of human design, so it's
Ah,
a part of the system.
I see. Okay, that's
Mhm.
so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because you're right, the way that you've lived your life, it's so front and center the way it is in your chart from your sun and Leo being right at your midheaven, right at the top of the chart. And so it makes sense why you were involved with acting
Mhm.
and even it blends into your motivations with Mars in the ninth house of being passionate about higher education and even teaching others. So it's
Mhm.
incredible the way that you've lived your chart.
Yeah, even when I was an archaeologist, I immediately in grad school started a podcast about archaeology so that I could
Oh,
be a visible, like archaeologist, like a person in the world who was teaching and speaking to the public about what we were doing. And that is also very in alignment with my Leo nature. I'm very comfortable being in front of people, being on camera, speaking. I have like the natural charisma that I think works really well in those type of things. So it was my natural inclination, even though my focus was on doing archaeology, I still needed to have that type of performative aspect to it.
that's incredible. I think there's also a layer there of you sharing your knowledge and your expertise and helping lead and guide others as well with your knowledge and your lived experience.
Yeah, very much so.
I love it. This is so incredible how you've lived your life through your chart. I love it.
That's so cool.
So your sun being a final dispositor, it can also help bring clarity and direction to choices and decisions because again, there's only one decision maker at the end of the day, in this case, your sun. And so that's the energy I'd like to highlight in order to help answer your question.
Okay.
And I do have a quick sidebar question. Did you choose the name of your most recent podcast because it includes one of the key words for someone with their sun in Leo, which and what I'm speaking to is the word self-discovery.
Yeah, that is actually part of the name of my podcast. That's one of the main focuses of my work in Everyday Projector.
That's incredible. I was wondering if that was something that you knew about having a sun in Leo, is that self-discovery, it's a really important part of your lived experience, especially when it's the final dispositor.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I love actually your podcast image as well. It's so lovely because you literally shine on your photo and look like the sun because you have that ray of light crown. And it's a
Yeah.
very powerful image for who you are as a person. And it just plays right into your natal chart.
That's so cool. That's so neat to see the how everything aligns and like yeah, how
I
it
love
just
it.
like, worked its way in there, even though I wasn't conscious about it.
I love it because that is one of the key words for someone with your sun placement is self-discovery.
That's so crazy. Over the last like 6 years or so, self-discovery has been like the biggest transformative, factor in my life that I've really been so focused on. And now bringing that to other people and trying to teach and guide them about the process. It's really
Yeah,
important to me. Yeah.
very much as it should be. So
Mm.
I love that. I love seeing that you're on the right path. You're on track.
Cool.
So one major goal in life with a placement like this is to discover how you are unique and important as well by sharing your gifts and skills with others.
Mm.
And what's ironic about a placement like this is that one of your gifts or hidden superpowers is understanding intuitively or very quickly where another person is coming from. But the flip side of that coin is that one of your challenges in life is knowing yourself very deeply and confidently. So
Mhm.
it's this irony of having outward power and outward leadership and outward confidence, but inside can still be that unsure or unknowing energy of
Mhm.
if you had to stand alone without the need to lead or guide others, where do you stand? Like, where are the decisions? Where are your goals and your values? That
Mhm.
part is a little murkier, which again is an ironic part of this placement.
Yeah, but that feels right. Yeah, that's true.
What this placement is asking you to do is to evolve from a more ego driven love to more altruistic compassion. So, what this means is to learn how to lead others from your heart genuinely that lacks any type of ego driven purpose
Hmm.
or more like a self centering purpose,
Hmm.
and to genuinely understand where others are coming from, what they might need in order to lead them for solely that purpose, to guide them for solely that purpose
Hmm.
without this secondary expectation to be recognized for that or to be rewarded, if you will, at the end. It,
Hmm.
it's it's trying to learn how to center a more altruistic worldview or purpose in order to make sure that choices and decisions, the first reason, the first line that that's being done is for something, an internal need, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really something that I'm gonna need to reflect on because I think that's really profound and something like it feels right in my heart. I gotta figure out how to like sort of suss out how I'm actually like coming into the world and my career and my life with that difference in energy to see how I can shift it into being more altruistic and getting over the anything that's really more ego driven. I feel like I do have I come from a place in my youth where I have a little bit of an insecurity or limiting belief around needing recognition and feeling like people don't see me as capable. And so maybe that's part of feeling like I need to get that recognition to, fill that place in me that feels like maybe people don't see me in that way. But if I can understand a way to get around that to heal that part and really focus more on the altruistic reason why I want to help people and doing it for that reason, that could be a huge transformation in itself in the way that I show up in my world, in my work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a lot of compassion and empathy because I share a lot of that experience with you because my rising is in Leo and I have some similar experiences as well to
Yeah.
where I mean well and I want to do the right thing and I want to be helpful.
Hmm.
But again, because of certain things in my past, it can be hurtful when you're not recognized, when you really did mean well
Hmm.
and you genuinely helped someone, but there was nothing to show for it. And it's a very difficult balance of trying to continue to show up in the world and to do good things, but then not it's not okay to never receive recognition.
Right.
Like we need to respect and acknowledge each other and what we're doing for each other. And I think it's a good time to also highlight the difference between personal needs and business needs, because that's something that's also common for me to discuss with people is
Hmm.
trying to understand what are core needs and goals and values that you have as a human being and how to have those fulfilled in a healthy way
Hmm.
without blurring the lines of business or or jobs or other types of social roles to
Hmm.
where there's appropriate actions to fulfill the jobs and those roles without needing to cross over into very private and personal needs that we have. And so
Hmm.
sometimes it can be very helpful and valuable to write down two different lists to say, okay, these are my personal values and needs that I have over here. And then these are my public values. These are business values. This is how my business aligns and what I'm going to do for the public and trying to understand different needs that are being fulfilled as well. So sometimes that can be helpful.
Hmm. That sounds like a great exercise that I look forward to doing very much. I love that stuff.
What also stands out to me about your chart is your ability to get all the right people into a room and also lead them to action, lead
Hmm.
them to a useful solution, and to have others follow through on their projects and goals.
Hmm.
So I really see that you have the capacity to use your skills and your talents to keep others productive, motivated, to keep them accomplished, to achieve something greater than they could otherwise have achieved without your leadership or without your direction and encouragement.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to ask if that's something that you've thought about before, this ability that you have, if you've been able to share that gift with others or use it before.
Hmm. Yeah, that feels very, very accurate. I love being able to turn my insights and experience, toward helping someone else see their situation in a different light, or maybe trying to help motivate them or come to conclusions that they aren't making in order to sort of make more positive change in their life and to like help them get through that process. That's something I very much see as a service that I can do for people that I feel, like very comfortable with. And I get a lot of really good feedback from people in my life when I am helping them through these situations or like listening and giving advice and guidance in that way. It's interesting because I feel probably more comfortable turning that toward other people. I'm not always great at going through that process with myself.
It's such an irony
Yeah,
sometimes of
yeah.
our best talents is it's so difficult to do it to ourselves. It's so easy to help others.
Yeah, I feel like it is a real strength of mine for sure. I see that.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And it's so interesting whenever you think about how to use this in the world, some of the things that came up for me are things that you've actually already accomplished. So it's things like, being a professor, writing workshops, artistic workshops, things like art therapy or artistic
Mhm.
consulting, even acting, voiceover
Mhm.
artists, etc. And so multiple opportunities or ways to use this gift that you have. It's
Mhm.
it's amazing that you've already lived it.
Wow, that's awesome. I feel like I've always been somebody who's like very in tune with myself. Like I know myself really well. I understand what feels authentic and aligned for me. Sometimes it's a bit messy trying to like make that work in every aspect of my life and like bring it to create something with legs, that is traditionally successful, quote unquote. But I know inside like who I am and what I'm good at, and I try to incorporate those things into my life and what I do.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that.
Mm.
I think what's great about this phase of life that you're currently in is that astrologically it's considered the second phase of life, if you will.
Mm.
And so this is genuinely the right time to be evolving and integrating your knowledge, all your world experience, all the travel that you've done, and really try to purposely share this with others
Hmm.
in a way that aligns, like I said, with your values and where you see yourself going for this next phase of your life.
Hmm.
Vice just trying to always study or train or better yourself in that way, in a more educational way. Or again, otherwise being nomadic and hopping around. It's really trying to uniquely merge your expertise, what you know, and stand on your knowledge and your leadership abilities to genuinely lead a group of people. Because that's really what I see coming up over and over again in your chart
Hmm.
is to experiment in this time period in order to help you align with this next phase of your life. So you can actually come up with a 5 year or a 10-year plan.
Hmm. That, yeah, that's exactly it. I feel like my vision right now is a little murky, but it is very much in alignment with that. Like I see myself basically just doing everything you just described, how to make it happen and how to make it successful on a more grounded level of what do I do day to day to build that is where I struggle, but the vision is there and it feels aligned for me 100%.
That's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that because I love the fact that we keep coming up upon these really important markers that are going on with your chart and your current transits and to know that you're there.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm definitely ready. Yeah.
Oh, another layer to this is what I'm seeing is that one of your goals is to learn how to be a bright light for other people. So it
Yeah.
is about learning to own your creativity and to share your unique skills and worldview with others
Hmm.
because you are meant to serve as an example of what's possible out in the world so that others are able to be helped along in their journeys when they can either learn from you or be guided by you. So it
Yeah.
is a time period to think about learning how to embody your creativity and approachability to
Hmm.
use your unique knowledge and leadership skills without having to compromise your own needs and boundaries.
Yeah. That's incredible. Like I really see that vision for myself. Can I ask like what in my chart are you looking at where it's you're like, "Oh, this is what you're gonna do."
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I'm looking at whenever I come up with these markers or these indicators is I'm seeing again it's the final dispositor aspect of your sun conjuncture midheaven.
Hmm.
So, it's a really important part of your reputation out in the world and where you're headed, and also with some of the current transits that you're experiencing. So, you do currently have Uranus square your sun, and you've also been going through your once in a lifetime transit of Uranus opposite Uranus, and
Mm.
also Neptune square Neptune. So, what this is all speaking to in plain language, all these very convoluted transits, is that it's definitely a period of confusion, uncertainty, disillusionment. Your boundaries are actually being blurred as well as dissolving. So,
Mhm.
this is why it's a very important time to, like, no kidding, be making these lists
Mhm.
of what are my personal values? And again, since you do run your own business, what are my business values in
Mhm.
order to try to evolve the values in order to understand where the new boundaries are and why they need to be maintained. Because
Mhm.
again, it is about protecting your autonomy and protecting who you are as a person and where you see yourself going to not lose yourself in the process. Because
Mhm.
again, that's something that might happen a little too easily since you can be pulled in a lot of different directions, is since
Yeah.
everything is so blurry and so murky right now on purpose. It's not a bad thing on purpose because you're meant to be evolving in this time period, but you are coming up on the end of these transits. So in December of this year is actually when all of these transits will kind of come to a close.
Mhm.
Since they are the outer planets and they're so slow moving, they go retrograde a lot. So they kind of go a little bit backwards before they move forward again. And that's why
Mhm.
these transits can take several years to get through. But whenever you get into 2026, the fog is kind of going to lift.
Okay.
And so this is your year of experimentation.
Mm.
This
Okay.
is not, I think I actually have a note for you about that.
Oh,
Let's see.
that's like really valuable information. Thank you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I did have a note. So I wanted to actually speak about these. I wasn't going to get super in the weeds of the transits themselves,
Mhm.
but I did want to really highlight that you are experiencing multiple transits at the moment and you're supposed to be experimenting right now.
Mm.
Quite literally this whole
Okay.
year because these transits are meant to be helping you evolve into what you want from this next stage of your life.
Mhm.
So this year is not supposed to be about making very firm, final decisions on things. It's honestly meant to be as creative and playful as you can imagine because the finality of things is meant to take place next year.
Okay.
So next year is a better time for firm decisions and saying, okay, I've decided to pick this specific thing and I'll move forward in this direction.
Hmm.
So I wanted to highly encourage you to really lean into your creativity and your playful skills
Hmm.
that thankfully you have an abundance of with all of your Leo in your chart.
Sure do.
And just really see what happens for you this next year in order to help you reach a really beneficial and helpful decision next year.
Okay. Oh my gosh, that's like, pow. Like, that's great. That's extremely good to know because I can put a lot of pressure on myself to get to that like end point and to have that firm, path set in front of me, even though I'm not good at doing it. I feel like I should. But to know that I don't have to put that pressure on myself right now, this moment, and that I can play around and try different things and see really where I'm shining and where I'm feeling pulled to and like I'm having the most success and potential is really great to know.
100%. And I was just a little bit worried about that because I could see that because your mind moves so fast and so quickly to 80 different things all at once,
Yeah.
I was worried that that was an element of your thinking and how you internalize things is that you would be
Hmm.
like, oh my God, I have to make a decision right this second.
Yeah.
Please know, do not rush yourself. This year is not about rushing, no decisions this year. So just try to not be hard on yourself and really, really experiment this year. Be as creative and playful as you can be.
Okay, I will. Thank you for giving me permission.
So I do have one final note for you.
Okay.
So I did want to highlight that on 20 April, Jupiter is going to be in Gemini, and this is going to form an exact square to your natal Venus in Virgo.
Okay.
And when it comes to Jupiter, Jupiter is the planet of expansion. And when Jupiter is square to Venus, it represents a lack of restraint. And so typically during this period of time, it means that you would be more likely to feel like you just want to relax and you just want to indulge. So, since we are talking about money and resources, it's important to be mindful during this time period to be more aware of not being impulsive when it comes to money
Hmm.
or spending habits. Just that you're not aware of this transit and what's taking place, people tend to be more spontaneous on making, big major purchases, and they're less likely to think about second and third order effects for long-term money, long-term resources, questions and
Hmm.
needs. So I just wanted to highlight from 20 April to 1 June of this year, if you can just set a reminder, whether that's, putting a sticky note on a mirror or making a new screensaver for your phone or just otherwise trying to be mindful in a way that works for you about your spending habits and to not go off course when it comes to your money during that month.
Okay. That's ironic that you say that. On April 20th, I will have just arrived in New Zealand for a 2-week vacation.
That is so exciting.
Yeah, well, my Sagittarius moon traveling feels to me like that's like being home is like traveling the world and finding new knowledge and expanding. It's just part of who I am. So I have like a once in a lifetime trip planned to New Zealand with some of my girlfriends this April. But I will try and be mindful to not go crazy with our spending while we're there. I am trying to be mindful and conservative in my plans for the trip, even though, it is a little bit of an investment to begin with.
Yeah, yeah. That's so ironic that it's right on 20 April when this goes exact.
Really is.
However, that is
Yep.
a once in a lifetime trip, so please enjoy yourself.
I plan on it. We've already got pretty much everything booked already, so the expenses are actually done.
Perfect.
But if we're there and someone's like, "Hey, do you guys want to go skydiving? It's only $400." I'm gonna be saying no.
Yeah, maybe just enjoy a nice view with a book and a cocktail or whatnot.
I have already been skydiving with less than 2 hours notice because I'm a very like ADHD.
A
Um,
spontaneous person.
I'm a very
Yeah.
spontaneous person, so I've done that already. I don't have to do that on this trip. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, do what you need to do in order to have trip insurance, travel
Yeah.
insurance. Make sure you
Okay.
got all your ducks in a row when it might come to very unexpected expenses, etc. Just in case.
Okay.
Only because it is during that transit, but please enjoy your vacation. That's amazing. I'm also very jealous that you're going to New Zealand.
Thank
But
you.
you're right, just being mindful of what's taking place with your money during that time.
Okay, that's really good to know. Thank you. I'm gonna really try not to go crazy, but I will be like, guys, don't let me go crazy also, so everyone knows.
So those are all the major highlights that I have for you when it comes to your natal chart and what I'm seeing right now specific to your question. Is there anything else when it comes to the astrology piece of this that I can help explain further or make sure that there's a very clear understanding on?
The only thing that comes up for me is my Scorpio rising. Feels to me like being a Scorpio rising and a Leo sun are two things that don't necessarily on the surface seem to align or like but I do feel a lot of that Scorpio-ness inside of me and my inner world and my, more secret, quiet inner consciousness. So how that kind of can play out in terms of how it affects everything that we've talked about with my career and aspirations and the way that I'm showing up in the world would be good to know.
Yeah, absolutely. What's funny about your Scorpio rising is that the ruling planet of that is Pluto,
Mhm.
and that was the first planet to cross your ascendant, and so it pulls extra energy
Hmm.
from that planet in order to try to not let your sun have the final say. And
Hmm.
so it's so ironic that the planet that represents power struggles and transformation and basically it's meant to burn things away in order to make way for new things. It's very, again, it's like playing life on a little bit more difficult of a setting because of how
Yeah.
powerful that planet is for
Hmm.
it to be in this constant power struggle with your sun.
Hmm.
And so how you interact with the world, your first world view, does have this flavor of intuitiveness. And so this is how you are so quick. It helps you be so quick in understanding what's going on, what is needed, recognizing what others feel or think before even they might have a conscious awareness of it.
Hmm.
And so it's amazing to have this depth, this almost unspoken depth and understanding of the world in
Hmm.
order to want to kind of take a step back. You kind of want to be a little bit behind the scenes, if you will,
Yeah.
vice
That's
your
the struggle.
vice your son just coming out of nowhere, like the
Yeah.
Kool-Aid man, and just being like, "No, get out there."
Yeah, I feel like it's there, that's that part of me is out there and that's my public self. And so sometimes when I retreat into my home and I'm home alone and I'm in my inner world, like I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to like I want to be alone.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can really feel that need to detach sometimes.
100%. Because it's important in order for you to respect both ways of being and showing up in the world in order to fulfill both of those pieces of you, those sides of you, and
Mhm.
not let one try to overrule the other.
Yeah.
But it is a very difficult power struggle just because of this aspect of your final dispositor. Normally, if Pluto wants to act that way and provide that worldview to you, since you're rising as Scorpio, normally it can just be over there, on the side, just doing its own thing. And it's not that big of a noticeable power struggle, if you will. But because your sun is the final dispositor, it can't help itself. It always comes in and has to have the final say.
Hmm.
And I can understand how that would be a struggle sometimes for you to be like, well, it's almost like inside of you really are two wolves and one is introverted and one is extroverted. And I
Yeah.
can I can see how that would be tiring for you to always have the extroverted wolf winning, for lack of a better word, when you have these other needs, these other drives that you would like to have fulfilled.
Hmm. Yeah, very much so. There's times when I'm at home and I'm like, God, I just want to like cover myself in a blanket and like retreat and just be deep thinking about everything and reading like, Eckhart Tolle and, just interpreting the world and that intuitive part of me. I really like being in touch with that intuitive part of me, but sometimes it can be hard to, because I always do feel like I have to get pulled out of it and out of my shell and out into the world. Like I can't just stay there.
Right. Is part of your question, is it seeking permission to be both, to have the duality? Or how can I understand your question more deeply to what you feel might be off?
Yeah, I mean, just like what challenge does it present having that Scorpio and Pluto influence on my Leo and my, my path forward, knowing that that for me is going to include being someone who's out in front of, people out in the world speaking and being visible when that there's that part of me that really pulls me back from that.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you for that clarity. I just wanted to make sure that I understood the question.
Yeah.
I definitely believe that it's important to respect both of these parts of yourself. And I know it's challenging when there are little ones, but definitely having time carved out to where you can be on your own and experience and learn from the world on your own without always having to show your work to someone out in the world.
Hmm.
So it is okay sometimes to quietly learn something by yourself and you just enjoy it for you. Like you don't have to show your notes. You don't have to always be
Yeah.
teaching people what you know.
Yeah.
It's okay to travel just for the sake of you wanting to travel and experiencing something new without you having to tell other people about the trip or teach someone what you learned on your trip or share
Mhm.
your trip on social media,
Yeah.
etc. And so I do think it's important to understand that we all have different sides to us, but that doesn't mean that the world is owed seeing every single piece of us.
Hmm.
And I think it goes back to some of the boundaries that we were talking about and just understanding and protecting where you want those boundaries to be.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Doing that exercise where I'm working on my personal and work boundaries and values, I think will be really helpful with that because those lines definitely blur and it can be uncomfortable for me sometimes feeling like I can't keep part of myself private. Like everything has to be for a purpose to be shared and made into some type of lesson or a YouTube video or whatever.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that might be like an old pattern, an old behavior that's probably been happening is where everything some way or another gets put on display
Yeah.
for
Hmm.
someone, through some type of medium, some type of media. And so I agree with you. I do believe that that'll be helpful for you. And also, I'm seeing like this knob being turned down to where it helps turn down the some of the frantic energy or the energy
Hmm.
bouncing all over the place is when
Hmm.
you have a more clear idea of where your boundaries are and why it's important to protect them.
I think that's really important. Like, I'm someone who will be up until 11 o'clock p.m. working, on my own personal stuff and not allow myself to have my me downtime to actually take care of myself until like almost midnight, and that's a boundary that's not healthy, you know?
Yeah.
It's non-existent.
Oh,
Um,
goodness.
and those are the type of things where I need to be able to turn off the productivity activities and work and then give time and space for the other part of me. That's only doing things that are intrinsically motivated for my own nourishment.
Right. 100%. Yeah, that'll definitely be important and hopefully be very, very helpful for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you so much for illuminating that for me because that's always been something that I looked at my chart and been like, why?
Yeah, I think if there was a menu, you chose some of the more difficult options.
Yep, yep, I've gotten that impression over the years. I certainly have not had the easiest path, and a lot of that I'm not sorry about because a lot of that came from me making bold choices, and that's part of who I am. So everything was in service of me learning and growing from the experiences that I've been through to get me, where I'm going, and that's going to be part of my path and my purpose. So I don't regret any of it.
Absolutely. It is something that you should be very proud of because you're
Hmm.
right. Not everyone could handle challenges like this, but you've definitely, not only met the challenges, but exceeded them as well. So hopefully you're very proud of the path that you've taken, regardless of it being more challenging compared to other situations.
Yeah, I feel lucky that I'm someone who was built to be able to withstand that, this type of chart, this type of life, because not everybody is, but I can do it. And so I take it on. And I'm proud of the fact that I'm able to make my way through life and continue to always come out on top of things.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that. That's amazing.
Thank you. This has been so wonderful. I've learned so much. I feel like I gotta like re-listen and go and take pages and pages of notes.
I really hope it's been helpful and that it helps you with your clarity seeking that you'll
Yeah,
have this year, that the journey that you're on, in order for
definitely.
you to really set yourself up for success whenever you start making more long-term plans. So I do wish you the best.
Thank you so much. I'm coming away with a lot of really tangible steps I can take that I think are going to be extremely helpful in my experiences this coming year. So I'm really, really grateful for that. Thank you, Brie.
You're welcome. I'm so happy I could do that for you. And I know that you're incredibly resourceful and you do have a lot to offer the world and teach others. So I do want to highlight and give you an opportunity for how people can find you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. So, this is a collaboration where Brie was on my podcast before I came on here, and that is the Cozy Self-Discovery podcast. I talk about self-discovery, how you can make transformative change in your life through the process of getting to know and understand yourself better. So, you can find that on all of the podcast places. And then I have a YouTube channel called Everyday Projector, because I'm a human design projector. It's a big part of who I am. And I talk about similar stuff on the channel. And I also like to give people, some active, lessons and things and tangible things that they can do in their life to try and improve their alignment between, who they are and what they're doing and how to make everything mesh a little bit better. So that's the YouTube channel. I have a website of the same name where I have a blog. And so you can find me in both of those places as well.
That's fantastic. I really hope people go and listen to your podcast and see what you have to offer on your website because these are incredible resources.
Thank you so much. I do have resources, and if someone wants to work with me, they're welcome to schedule a discovery call on my website and we can talk and see if we can make some changes together.
That's awesome. Thank you again so much for being here today.
Thanks, Bray. It was such a delight.
I want to thank you so much for joining me this week on Forecasting for Success and let you know that you can read the transcript for each podcast episode on my website, which is linked below in the show notes. I've also included the link to send me your money questions if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast at forecastingforsuccess.com/podcast. And if you're ready to get started on improving your financial literacy and developing your own personalized money plan, I encourage you to join my Forecasting for Success community, where I teach you everything you need to know about budgeting, how to choose your retirement number, how to invest in the stock market, and so much more. I go live in the community each month to check in on your progress and help answer any questions you may have. And it's a supportive community where you can also check in with other members and learn from their experiences as well. I hope you take good care of yourself, and I'll talk to you next week.